It's Ash from Super Videos, back for another video for Season 8 of The Walking Dead. This is going to be my review for episode 14, which was called Still Gotta Mean Something. This review is super late, but I did want to put it out before the next episode airs. So let's just get into this. This review is going to be very short, mostly because it's very late. Overall, I really liked this episode. It was a good episode. I enjoyed it more than the last episode, which was episode 13. It was less action-packed, but it had more interesting dynamics between characters and more interesting kind of things being set up than the previous episode, in my opinion. So this episode was basically broken into 4 main sections. The first section was the whole thing with Negan and Jadis. So obviously by that point, Jadis had captured Negan. So that whole thing was one main section of this episode. The next one was Morgan and Carol going after Henry to find him and also looking for the prisoners, which broke into 2 things. One was Morgan basically splitting off from his mission with Carol and going after the saviors by himself, running into Rick. And then them going to the bar to find the saviors, and then from there having the main savior death in this episode for Jared. And then the last section was when Carol split off from Morgan, she found Henry and brought him back to Hilltop. So these are basically the 4 main sections. So for the first section with Negan and Jadis, I felt like this part was a little bit underwhelming. I wanted to see a bit more, and in my opinion, it was a bit lazy in terms of what they had planned, because it seems like the only reason why Negan was captured by Jadis was for Simon to be able to do his thing and for that storyline to play out. And it seemed like there wasn't enough between Negan and Jadis for that story to be interesting by itself. So in my opinion, they could have done more for that. But going from there, we did have Jadis bringing out Winslow Walker. I feel like it's getting repetitive at this point, and I didn't really understand the point of having Winslow there, because Negan easily got out of it. And it seems like Jadis either miscalculated things completely, or she was never after killing Negan in the first place. So that whole thing was underwhelming. And also, 2 other things. One, for Negan to reveal that Lucille was his wife. As good as that was, I felt like it was disappointing, because I wanted that to be a conversation between Negan and Rick, not Negan and Jadis. They already kind of took away from that whole thing between Negan and Rick by having Negan talking to Father Gabriel earlier on in the season about his wife and how he lost his wife. So at that point, we've already lost a little bit of that whole scenario with Negan and Rick. But for them to actually completely mess it up with having Negan reveal that his wife's name was Lucille in front of Jadis instead of Rick kind of just ruined it for me. I wanted to see that conversation, not this conversation between Negan and Jadis. I felt like this didn't really add a lot to the story, but the conversation with Negan and Rick would have. So a big disappointment there. But then, the helicopter coming back into play in this episode, I am very interested and excited to see where the story goes in terms of that. But at the same time, I feel like they have to give us something cool, because they've been building it up for so long since the beginning of the season. So I hope that they have something very interesting planned. But basically, the only thing I really did enjoy about that whole scenario with Negan and Jadis was the helicopter coming into play. The next section was the whole thing with Morgan and Carol going after Henry to find him. Before I get into that, one thing I want to mention is we also had the reveal in this episode that the arrow that Dwight used on Tara was not infected, most likely, and Tara is okay at this point. I did like that conversation, but at the same time, I feel like it's getting boring. It's getting repetitive because they keep switching sides. Daryl was defending Dwight a few episodes ago, and now he's just turned around completely. Same thing with Tara. So I feel like this back and forth between them is getting repetitive and kind of annoying at this point. Same thing applies to Morgan and Carol. That happens less with Morgan, I feel, but for Carol, it's even more, because she keeps flipping back and forth, and this whole thing seems to be a long-running meme at this point, and it's getting kind of annoying. I do like the actors that are playing Morgan and Carol, and that's what's making me enjoy it as much as I am, but it is getting repetitive at this point. But going back to what I was talking about, so Morgan and Carol going after Henry, trying to find them, and also the other prisoners, I love the conversation between them. right before they split off. I really love that. I think that they both deserve some kind of award. Not only was it gut-wrenching, but at the same time, it was something that we needed to see in terms of those two characters finally sitting down and talking about stuff that's been eating them from the inside for so long. So that was great to see. I really liked that whole conversation between them. But then after Carol split off from Morgan, Carol found Henry. I absolutely loved that. First, because it was shocking, because I didn't think Henry was actually alive. So that was great to see that he was actually alive. That whole scene, it was phenomenal. It was done perfectly. I loved it. I really loved it. And after Carol brought him back to King Ezekiel and everything, absolutely loved it. I don't know if you guys caught this or not. I'm sure everyone did, but there was an Easter egg because Carol found Henry in the exact same spot where Sophia was hiding. Obviously, Sophia didn't make it, but Henry did in this case. So that was a whole Easter egg, a great Easter egg in my opinion. And to top it off, the actor that plays Henry is the little brother of the actress that played Sophia. So that adds a lot more to that whole Easter egg as well. And it was also a great way to bring closure to Carol because she couldn't make it on time to find her own daughter. But now in this case, she finally was able to get to them and find them and save them. So I feel like it was also a great way to give this character this closure that she needed. But I absolutely loved the whole thing with Carol finding Henry. Then going from there, when Morgan basically splits off from Carol, loved the whole thing where Rick shows up and he's like, Morgan, you know me. That was great to see. I loved that. Just to see that as badass and as savage as Rick is, he's not messing around with Morgan. He knows how crazy Morgan is. So that was great to see. But then they basically get captured. And at that point I was like, come on, I don't want to see another episode where they're just captured. But we ended up not seeing that. They ended up resolving that pretty quickly. They revealed it pretty quickly and resolved it pretty quickly. So it was great to see. But we do see that they were captured by Jared and the other POWs that ran away. Now, I loved that whole conversation between Morgan and Jared. That was intense. I loved it. And Morgan kept saying, I don't die. You guys are the ones that die. I am gonna live. I absolutely loved how that played out and everything. Once the hurt is there, I don't know about you guys, but there's no way to defend what Rick and Morgan did. Because the Saviors actually saved them, actually helped them out. So for them to do that, for them to just kill them right then and there after they saved them and helped them, it's just cold. That's the most cold thing Rick and Morgan have ever done, I would say. So there's no way for me to defend that. Also, aside from the moral aspect of it, there's gotta be an after. If Rick is gonna keep killing these Saviors like this, then there's gonna be no way that the other Saviors that might not be fighters are going to trust Rick and the others at this point. So I feel like there's gotta be an after, and if Rick continues to do what he's doing, that after may not happen the way that they want it to. But, you know, I love that conversation between Morgan and Rick about why Morgan saved Rick back in season 1. That was great to see. And also the imagery was great with Rick looking at the broken mirror. I absolutely loved that ending scene between them. That was great. One thing that I forgot to mention, which is the big thing, is Jared's death. Absolutely loved it. I think that everyone was waiting for it. Everyone's happy that Jared is dead. The way he died was great because it was brutal, but at the same time, I think he deserved it. And it was a great callback to Noah's death because Noah died the exact same way. So I feel like fans have some sort of reward at this point because of this death. Great to see. His storyline was wrapped up pretty nicely. It was a great death for a character that pissed fans off the way he did. So I think that was a great ending to his storyline as well. Then that takes me to the last thing that I do want to mention is Negan picking up someone right before he got to the sanctuary. I've actually shared my thoughts about that, who I think it is. I think that it's Laura, the Savior, that ran away, that knows that Dwight is the rat, the snitch. So I definitely think that it's Laura at this point. I think that's the safest bet. But it's going to be very interesting to see what happens tonight, next episode, with Negan and Dwight, and also Negan and Simon. So I think that there's going to be a lot of crazy stuff happening at the Sanctuary tonight. Very excited. But that's basically my review. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video. If you like what you see, press like, subscribe for more content, and press the bell button to receive notifications for future uploads. Like the Facebook page of this channel to join our Walking Dead community. Join us live every Friday night at 6 p.m. Mountain Time for a Q&A session. See you all there.